All right. You probably heard Alabama starting tackle Elijah Pritchett plans to enter the transfer portal. He's in the portal. He's in Lincoln today. 6'6", 330 pounds. According to this, and I've heard various things, started all 13 games for Nebraska, for Alabama, 2 years of eligibility left. Now, he allowed 31 pressures, okay, gave up 6 sacks, and somebody texted me also 2 arrests. So the Alabama papers aren't exactly the fondest, okay? You look at his stats compared to like Caden Proctor, allowed 13 hurries this year. He allowed 31. Jaden Roberts, 11. Tyler Booker, 10. Wilkin Formby, I don't know if I'm saying that right, 8. And a couple other their linemen allowed 7 pressures. He allowed by far the most. Now, am I burying the kid? No, not at all. Here's what I see. Because I had someone mention this to me on X, and I screenshotted it. They said, Adam, do your research, because I commented on this, that we need O-linemen. This would be an important addition. Important being the most important word in that sentence. Adam, do your research. This guy would not be a good addition at all. I didn't say good addition. I said, here was my exact response. Pay attention. I said he would be an, and I quote, important addition, end quote. And I said, I stand by those words. It's a position of need. He's very talented. He's a 4-star in the portal, former 5-star out of high school, top 100 commit in the country. I don't think Alabama even offers you unless you're in the top 100. I'm just kidding, but probably. My point is, it's a position of need. He's very talented. At that point, if he comes here, it comes down to coaching. And I'm going to look at Donovan Raiola, who's going into his 4th year as the offensive line coach. Been here longer than anybody else in that football facility as a coach. And I'm going to say it's about time we produced a good offensive line. This guy's got a bit of a history. He's also got a ton of talent, and that tiebreaker comes down to coaching. So, he is projected to commit to Nebraska. That's according to some of the On3 folks. We'll see what happens. If he comes, talented, position of need, coaching, that's the tiebreaker. That's what's going to matter. If he doesn't commit here, this is all a moot point. We'll see who we do end up getting, because we need at least 2 offensive linemen. At least two. Tackle, interior linemen. All right. Jake, do you kind of feel like, is this a fair way of looking at it? You heard the conversation I had with an individual right before I came on air. And my response to him when we were talking about this guy was, because he's talented. Started Alabama without having talent. Again, it's coaching. Is it unfair to say that maybe we didn't get the top flight lineman we want, so now we're going down to the next tier of linemen to get who we can get, with all due respect? And this guy might come here. Raiola might coach him up. He might be an All-American. He might come here. He might not do so much, and it may never come to nothing. I don't know. But what are your thoughts? Because that's exactly basically what I said to the individual before I walked in here. You heard that. What are your thoughts on that statement?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of odd. I understand that Alabama fans were frustrated with the kid, but I mean, what you just kind of stated out, that doesn't sound like a starter at Alabama, right? Mm-mm. That's like if you're the worst starter at Alabama, that generally would still put you near the top in the country. Now, again, gave up a lot of pressures. I mean, you look through his numbers, Alabama fans are excited about him, but part of it is, is growing through that too. It's good to at least get a guy with some experience. I mean, we've got guys from Alabama before without experience, and they don't really hit the field generally, or at times have not. So, I don't know if you're on your 2nd round. I know they had some other guys that they were after, Keegan Trost and Fiamoa, and he went to Wake Forest. So there's not their first target, but he just entered the portal. So it's tough to say. I still would hold him in high regard. And again, maybe he's not your number 1 tackle, but maybe he can be your 2nd tackle.
We need depth.
Right. So it would be a huge get with a lot of upside, like you said. I don't necessarily know if they're on plan B. But that being said, I mean, the portal has been open for a long time. It was a need going into it. So I can see how it's seen that way.
I guess we'll see what happens. If he comes, I'm going to assume there's a reason Matt Rule wanted him. I'm going to assume they believe they can do things with him. If you're getting a guy like that with only 2 years of eligibility and a ton of starting experience, I'm going to assume they want him to come in and start and to play right away. And then that's going to come down to coaching. I do think with some of the off-field stuff, I think that plays a factor as well, probably when it comes to the Alabama folks and some of the thoughts that they've shared. I'm not going to say if he comes, I'm not going to poo-poo all over the guy. I'm also not going to sit here and say, bam, great addition. What I'm going to say, important addition at a spot of need with a lot of talent. What are you going to do with him, Donovan Raiola, if he commits? That's how I'll look at it. All right, Mo Westmoreland is also in Lincoln today. All right, two-time JUCO All-American, two-time Conference USA first-team All-Performer, and 2024 Conference USA sack leader. Now, if he comes here, what I'm hearing a lot of, we're getting a lot of these lower tier, really good players. That doesn't excite me. I look at Indiana, and yeah, they were outmanned versus Notre Dame. How can you poo-poo anything they did? 3-9 to 11-1. Are you freaking kidding me? So for me, they didn't even get the top players from different conferences. They just took the best players from one team, James Madison, and then two more from Ohio. Curtis Rourke and their top wide receiver from Ohio, who became probably their top wide receiver at Indiana. So if we do this, we'd be getting the top player, defensive player of the year from the Sun Belt. By the way, when Georgia Southern was here a few years ago and beat us on Memorial Stadium, he led Georgia Southern in tackles that night with 10. So he's been inside Memorial Stadium and had success before, unfortunately for us. But we'd have the Sun Belt Conference Defensive Player of the Year. And if Mo Westmoreland indeed does come, the 2024 Conference USA sack leader. So we're not just getting the best player or players off a particular team, but out of an entire conference. And here's what I'll tell you. Sometimes these guys go to smaller conferences because they're not quite as athletic, but they could play at a Power 4 conference level. All right. But they wouldn't be top tier Power 4 conference. Sometimes they go somewhere else due to academics. Sometimes there's late bloomers. I sat here and talked about Dennis Rodman, which is an anomaly, by the way. He grew like 6 inches that one summer. You remember me talking about that?
Yeah,
then all of a sudden he turned into Dennis frickin' Rodman. Now that, again, that's an anomaly. But I do get excited when it's like conference sack leader, conference defensive player of the year. I expect them to come in and start and make an impact. Now, are they going to be like first team All Big Ten? I don't know, but let's give them a chance because they're definitely more experienced. They're definitely been more productive than a lot of the guys we currently have. Are they more physically talented purely? I don't know, but we need some guys with some experience on the defense after a lot of the experienced guys from last year aren't here anymore. Okay, so for me, it's hard not to get at least mildly excited, and then we'll see what the ceiling is. Does that make sense to you, Jake?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, how often do you watch the NFL draft and say, "Hey, how did Toledo or Northern Iowa or somebody get a kid in the first round, and Nebraska can't get one for years?" You know, so yeah, there's talent everywhere, and these days I think it's going to be harder for the smaller schools to keep them.
Oh, for sure. This is what's going to happen. They're going to, hey, our best players, we can't quite afford to pay you what Nebraska does, and then Nebraska's going to get them. I mean, I'm actually watching this thing on Randy Moss. Remember, he went to Marshall. Ben Roethlisberger went to Miami of Ohio. Just a couple of guys off the top of my head. Texas, their top pass rusher went to UTSA, University of Texas San Antonio. The Roadrunners, meet me, last year. I can't believe I just did that on air, Jake.
I like that.
I love the Roadrunner. All right, when I was growing up, that Coyote was just not very bright. But he was really tough. It's amazing the things he could endure.
That's true.
But from UTSA, University of Texas, San Antonio, the Roadrunners, their best defensive player went to Texas, and he's been their leading pass rusher this past year. A little follow-up to yesterday. Now, this is per @Skurs News on X. Sip, talking about Steve Sipple, said on his show today that he knows Mike Eckler, Tennessee special teams coach. We need a special teams coach. He's top 5 in America when it comes to being ranked as a highly successful special teams coach from Nebraska, coach to Nebraska, born and raised in this great state. Mike Eckler is very interested in the open special teams coordinator job. He believes, talking about Sip, he would take it if offered. We'll see what happens there. All right, I think that'd be a home run hire. I mean, I really do. I would feel like we've got one of the top 3 offensive coordinators in the country in Holgerson. We got one of the top 5 special teams coaches, if this were to happen, in Eckler. And Butler's got as much of a resume and experience as you can possibly imagine. Are you going to prove it on the field this year consistently? That'd be the question there. You look at all 3 coordinators, it's like, man, there's a lot of experience and proven success over time.